Welcome, Feral fans, and I have another interview for you today. And this interview is definitely going to just grasp every concept that you probably wanted to talk about, but never got the chance. And I have Dr. Stacy here today to join me to talk about this probably controversial and intense conversation that we all want to have with our partners, but we can't find the actual words to say it. Maybe you have kinks, maybe you have sexual desires that you want to talk about, but you can't find the actual words to talk about it. Whether it's the beginning of your relationship, the middle of the relationship, or the longevity of the relationship. But Dr. Stacy, how are you doing today? Thank you for joining the show.
I am doing great, and thanks for having me talk about something that everybody needs to learn how to talk about better.
Definitely. I will be honest, because having a conversation about sexual interest, especially when you have a new partner and you're trying to figure each other out. That's the
Right.
first thing. And then you get into some of the exploration of interest. And it's like, okay, well, how do I tell them that I want a little bit more sexual intensity, I want more passion, or I just want to kind of get this kink out? I had to have that conversation with them.
Absolutely. I
But
mean, that is one of the difficult things. I mean, even in long-term relationships, if you've been doing something for 20 years and all of a sudden you want to change it up and you're like, how do I bring this up if after 20 years we've been doing the same thing? I don't know how to bring it up. I mean, I get those questions all the time from people. You know,
now,
you
now
don't know
before
when the right time is.
You're absolutely. And before we jump into that, just give the audience a little bit of background about you.
Well, I have been in the field since probably 1994. And I was an ultrasound technologist for 26 years. So I have a lot of the medical background. So I incorporate a lot of that knowledge to what I know about the sex and intimacy background. And I've also had a lot of my own personal experiences and growth that I use all that together. So I work with individuals and couples just to help them with sexual function, dysfunction, relationship, spicing things up, mismatched sex drives. I have a podcast as well called the Purple Passion Project that I put out information that's helpful for sex and intimacy. And I just kind of wanted to be one of the places that people would go to because so many people don't have a safe space to go to that's non-judgmental. And so
You're
here I am.
you're absolutely right. And some of the things in that piece that you have stated, sexual dysfunction, all of those things, I've heard it. Be like, yeah, I got, when guys, sometimes guys open up and talk about it. Some of the things that they do and some of the things they don't do. If another guy is having this experience, what do you do? How can you help me out? If they're comfortable with it. Most guys don't. They like I'm not going to embarrass myself and talk about it
Right,
because
right.
because
There's a
some
lot of
people,
shame.
yeah, they feel ashamed about it, so they don't want to talk about it. So when we're talking about couples, and one of the more controversial conversations that is always heard is initiating. Okay, why is initiating sex such a sensitive topic for many couples? Because as a man, I would like for a woman to initiate the sexual contact. It doesn't have to be all the time,
Right.
but it does make me feel like she wants it and she wants me.
Abs-
You
yeah.
know, even if I'm not feeling like it, she was just like, even if she verbally said like, I want you to jump on me today. I'm like, okay, cool, we on the same page today. maybe
Yeah.
maybe we're not on the same. Maybe I wasn't thinking about it, but I know that you're just into it as much as I'm into it, and it doesn't feel like a chore.
Right. Right. Well, I think first of all, some people fear rejection, especially if you're maybe a little bit newer in the relationship and you're not really sure how it is. But I think just in general, society has gender roles, which we need to get rid of because the whole thing is that men are the ones that should initiate and women are the ones that should not, or women are the ones that should not have to share that we're interested in sex because you know what? For so many years, you get slut shamed. And one of the things I knew from me growing up, I used to get slut shamed all the time because I was the one person that was always initiating. And people are like, how do you do that? Aren't you afraid what they're going to think? No, you know?
Yeah.
But that has a lot to do with it too, is just even gender roles.
And I agree with that. And and I will tell some of the friends that I have that are women, I say, well, um, when we talk about initiating, let's just talk about initiating across the board. Initiate that you can initiate where you want to go, an event and everything like that
Yeah.
because you expect the man to pay. But if you see somebody that you find attractive, you're not going to approach them. You're going to assume or believe that they're going to approach you, and that's
You
not
hope.
always the case. If I'm
Right.
in a grocery store and I see somebody, and if we're talking about modern times, I see somebody in a grocery store that I want to talk to, but they're on the phone. Or they look at me and I look at them, and I'm waiting for maybe a smile or
A
something that's an
sign.
opening that gives me a sign, but it never comes. So then it's like, okay, well, if I interrupt their day and have this conversation, there's a likelihood that there's going to be a yes or it's going to be a no.
Right.
And with my experience, it leads so much more towards knowing something in
Well,
so many
especially
cases.
as a man, because another thing with society is that, we tell men it's not okay to approach women because we have a lot of men that do not do it appropriately. And
That
so the men that are wanting to be appropriate and wanting to approach may not because of their fear, not
hmm
necessarily of rejection, but just fear of like, oh, they might think that I'm sexually harassing them or
Yeah.
things like that. So it's a fine line, and that's why I always tell women, give those men that help and support to know it's okay to approach, you know?
Now, there's also that stigma, and this has been happening. I don't want to say it doesn't happen as much now because I don't see it in the news as much, but there was a point in time where men would get violent towards women when they felt like they didn't um they didn't get the response that they wanted. Or they didn't get the
Oh,
phone number that they wanted. They didn't get the response. So then women start to just give out a phone number, whether they give out their phone number and then they'll block it later, or they'll give out the wrong phone number, but then guys start to get hip and they just start calling the number right then and there, which caused even more conflict. So now on both sides, you have a fear, because women are scared that if they tell the man no, he's going to react in a particular way because of that no,
correct.
or be more aggressive or assertive. And
Correct.
then for men, there have been such situations where women, especially if they're in groups, would talk down to them, talk bad about them right there in front of everybody.
Right. So they
And then
have
it
that.
becomes embarrassing.
Right, right. But now the difference is that men being embarrassed versus women being assaulted, which doesn't I'm not saying men don't ever get assaulted, but I'm just saying when it comes to that dating or that fear,
Yeah.
and so that's I think why women might be a little bit more cautious. But when you're in a relationship, like you said, you want to feel wanted, you want to feel desired, and you want a woman once in a while to just say, "Hey, I want you. Let's take your pants off. Let's do this."
Yeah.
And a lot of women just either are not used to doing that, or the problem sometimes with more women than men, which there are men that have responsive desire, but a lot more women have responsive desire. So if they're not responding to something and they're just in the kitchen cooking, where a man might look at a woman and be like, "Oh, I'm awesome, I have an erection," a woman is going to need something to help her get turned on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why. But I try to tell people, like for example, yesterday, I wasn't so-called horny yesterday, but I love my husband. And I was just looking at my husband. I'm like, you know what? He said to me, what's going on? I'm like, let's go upstairs. And he just looked at me and I'm like, come on, let's go. Just just to start something. I wasn't
Yeah.
horny at all, but it was a reason to connect.
hmm
So you kind of have to change that mindset as to, okay, I'm horny, let's start, or I'm going to initiate because I want to show my partner I love them.
Okay. So now let me ask this question. We know that there are a fair amount of men that are kind of oblivious
Yeah. I
to
didn't
the.
say that. You did. I
I
didn't say
said that.
that.
I said that. I said that are oblivious. So just like you said, you know, you had to jump and let's go upstairs. The first thing he did, he just looked at you like, hold on, wait, what? It caught him off guard.
Oh, it totally caught him off guard. Yeah.
The complete awareness was just, hold on, wait, say that again. Like there's a need for confirmation.
In other
And
words, I'm taking your pants off and we're getting down, okay?
right. So so how direct do you think that in those situations, because you were very direct,
Yeah.
but for other women that aren't that direct, what are some ways that they can be more direct to show that their guy that, hey, I know that your focus is problem solving and being logical and everything, but I'm
Right.
trying to be very direct. Sometimes they can come down in lingerie, sometimes they can, but what are some things that they may not have thought of to get their man attention to say, hey, I want to get down today, right now, right tonight, whatever.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of people. I'm just happen to be a very confident person, but there's a lot of people that are shy, more shy and not as confident. So there's many ways. I talk to so many women. They're like, well, I asked them if they wanted to have sex. I'm like, what guy wants to just be like, oh, you feel like having sex? No, they want to feel desired. They want to know that you want to do something. So casually take their hand and maybe walk them to the bedroom and they could look at you like, what are you doing? And just be like, you'll see. You don't have to use vulgar language. You don't have to say, I'm
Sure.
taking your pants off. You could just do that. Or go up to them in the kitchen or in the, bedroom, wherever you are, and just give them a hug, look them in the eyes, and maybe just give them a nice kiss and then just linger that eye contact a little longer. Or, if you're, out at dinner and then after dinner you go to the car, just pull them closer. Let's say if they open the door for you or whatever, go and give them a longer, lingering kiss or a hug and put your hand on their butt. Little things that show that you're interested in your partner. Little flirty things, playful things.
I agree. I like that idea. Even to go so far as, because men would try to create an intimate evening or how the cases like that. Women don't have to do so much of that for men because they just be like,
They'll be like, I'm
sure.
ready.
Why not? Like hot and ready. You said what? Bing, let's go. So even when we're talking about that, how important is it? How important is emotional safety and maintaining a good sex life? And this is more so towards people that's in relationships that are evolving, going maybe
Right.
5, 10 years. And, how do they keep that spice in their life to say like, okay, well, we have a good sex life. Even if they got family, they got kids and everything. And, life has become routine and kind of mundane.
Welcome to 99% of my clients. First of all, that's normal. And for people to know that they are not the only ones, okay? The brain is the biggest sex organ, especially for women, okay? And the password to get in there is safety. And when people think of safety, because I remember I would talk to people like, you need to provide safety. And they'd be like, I'm not going to hurt her. I'm like, that's not what safety means. Safety means that people can truly be naked, not physically, but emotionally, and physically, obviously. They need to know that they can trust you with just anything that they do, anything that they say, who they are, with no judgment
Yeah.
and looking at your partner with curiosity. Okay. Foreplay is not going to get started unless that person trusts you and feels safe.
Yes.
Okay. And that's emotional safety. And that's just basically saying, if you wanted to start something, for example, and you kiss and you're just not in the mood for sex, but you still want to connect and you're fooling around and then your partner gets mad. What did they do? They just took that safety away from you. That
Wow.
person is going to think twice before they decide to kiss you out of nowhere because they don't feel safe that if they wanted to stop, the partner's not going to get angry.
Okay. Okay.
So the more that the partner can help provide that feeling of safety without judgment and just understanding that maybe the person is not in the mood right now. Maybe if I just let them do what they want to do and if they say stop, I'm not talking about like, oh, doing something against their will. I'm just talking about not being angry as a partner, being like, well, you said you were going to do it and now you didn't do it. And if you get mad at someone for not being intimate with you, that person is going to put a wall up.
Yeah.
That takes away your emotional safety.
Yes. So how does that translate? I've heard this. Now, a lot of people in my circle are married. And one of the things that I hear that they say that, they found out from therapists and everything that, one, don't let arguments or anger stop you from being intimate with your partner,
Right.
right? Even if you're mad with them for how long at a time, still be intimate. But how does that play emotionally? Because if two people who had it out and say they're not talking for days at a time,
Mhm.
there is a vulnerability there that they can get interest outside of their relationship. So how do you maintain that level of intimacy even when you're in the midst of an argument? Even if you're trying to work it out and you're still just not seeing eye to eye.
You have to think you're in this relationship as a partnership. You might still get mad at each other, but you still need to be there to support each other. You guys are not purposely getting mad. It's not like you want to get angry. You want your marriage to fail. So you have to look at it as a team effort and you have to figure out, is this something that is really worth fighting about? And the intimacy is that even if you're angry, I know my husband and I don't fight very often at all. And if we argue, we don't fight. We argue if we have something that we need to talk about, but even then we don't. But even if he's frustrated or I'm frustrated, we will always just give each other a hug. We would always just either just hold each other's hand or sit next to each other and just say, listen, I love you. I'm just a little frustrated right now. So I'm still telling the person that I'm still here, that I still care, but I just need to get through what is frustrating at this point. And a lot of times therapy can obviously help. But the hand holding, the hugging, the kissing, that kind of intimacy, just even the words to let that person know, even though I'm frustrated, I'm still here.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Because I've always wondered, because even with myself and dating, you with somebody for a significant amount of time, you get into an argument, and it's like that intimacy it's just not it's not there until the argument is resolved. Or, some people have they have intimacy after the argument, and that's kind of like the makeup.
Makeup sex.
Makeup sex. Yeah, I couldn't think of the word. It's makeup sex, but it doesn't resolve the
No.
issue because the issue's still there,
Right.
but they just got to a point of frustration where they had sex and then it was like, okay, but we still haven't talked about the issue yet. The issue still lingers.
Right. And that happens a lot with newer relationships or even older relationships, but that's where it's so important to learn about how to communicate with each other, how to really sit there and say, is this little thing worth it? I know that so many people get mad at their partners. They didn't take out the garbage. I have to ask them every single night to take out the garbage. I'm like, is it really that big of a deal if you have
Yeah.
to say, like, if you ask them to take out the garbage, do they? Well, yeah, of course they do, but why can't they do it on their own? I'm like, well, they should be able to, but if you have to remind them, is it that big of a deal to get mad about? My
Yeah.
husband leaves the lights on 24/7. I am telling him every single day to turn the lights off. But you know what I do? If I see a light on, I walk over and I turn the freaking light off.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to get mad at something because he's not doing it on purpose. And if I
Right.
tell him to turn the light off, he turns it off. And that's what people have to realize is that, yeah, it might be some things that may frustrate you, like, oh my God, every single day I have to turn the light off. Big deal. Think
Yeah.
about everything else that that person gives you and offers you and the connection that you have.
I like that. I like that. I mean, it's something because something so simple can agitate somebody. They
Oh
just
my
like,
God.
why do they do that? Why do they do this? Like,
Why
and
worry about it? Is an individual. They're an individual.
right. And
You think
nobody's
your
gonna be
shit don't
perfect.
stink?
Fact. So going into talking about, exploration and kinks and everything like that. So how can a partner safely bring up a kink or new idea they like to explore? And how can they maintain clear boundaries while still being open and curious?
One of the things that I always tell people to do is if you're going to be talking about something different or something new, don't do it in the bedroom. Do it
Okay.
outside of the bedroom, kitchen table, out to dinner, romantic walk on the beach, whatever, sitting on the couch. Because then you're going to have an area where it doesn't feel pressured. If you're just talking about it in the bedroom, then it's kind of like, oh gosh, well, what do they expect from me right now?
Right.
And you want to, once again, come with curiosity, okay? Because a lot of people are nervous about sharing and communicating about their kinks or their desires or their fetishes or fantasies. And
Yes.
so when you come from it with language that sparks curiosity, instead of being like, you like that, or what would you do? You would do that. Rather than doing that, just say, well, what do you think about this? Or if someone says something to you like, oh, I like this, instead of coming back to them as like, ew, you do? Say, okay, well, what is it about that you like? And ask questions. Desire thrives in curiosity. Okay. As soon as you stick judgment in anything, you are putting a wall up for desire.
I agree. Now, do you, in your experience, do you think that men are more acceptable to the kinks that women have, and women are more against the kinks that men have? Because I've had conversations and presented things. Some women would say, oh, "Okay, yeah, I can do that," and then for others, they're like, "No, I don't think I would be comfortable doing that." And I understand, but then it's like I don't feel fulfilled sexually in the relationship because that aspect is missing. It doesn't take anything away from that person, and we can still have a thriving relationship. But it's always like,
Right.
okay, am I feeling 100% fulfilled? And if this is this one part of my life I can leave out that is part of me, but not necessarily something that they want to explore in a relationship.
Right. It's hard to say who accepts more than the other. It really depends on the person. I think that men seem to have a little bit more of the fetishes or the fantasies that I have, noticed than
Okay.
women. But there are a lot of women that if a man comes to them with something, because men seem to have a little bit more of that than women, um, they do come with a lot of times with judgment. And that's
Yeah.
why I said that depending on how, there's so many fantasies that people can fulfill if they ask those questions, such as, well, what is it about that fantasy that you like? Because let's say, for example, a threesome. A man might say, God, I would love to have a threesome. Right away, a woman might be like, screw that. I'm not doing a threesome. What's wrong with me? Am I not enough?
Yeah.
Automatically like taking it on themselves. So rather than doing that, like I said, you start with curiosity and say, well, what is it about a threesome that you like? Because you might be surprised at the answer. It may not be having another person. It may just be like, oh, it'd be so great to have someone, making out with my mouth at the same time that they're going down on me. So
Yeah.
in that case, maybe you get, you're making out with him and use a masturbation sleeve to get him off. And that way he can have that feeling without doing that. Or maybe it's another man there that he wants to watch his partner with. Get a suction cup dildo and put it aside and watch your partner, have sex while they're giving you a blowjob. There's so many ways that you can treat your partner with respect when they're coming to you with something like this. I actually have, it's a yes, no, maybe
Mm,
checklist. So
okay.
if anyone
Mhm.
wants it, they can message me. It's a free PDF. And what it is that you can go through it and say, yes, I would do this. No, I would not. Maybe if you wanted to, I would try it. And then both partners would fill it out and then they would look to see what matched. So that way those maybes may turn into yeses. And you might be able to get
Mm.
some of your fantasies or kinks done with that conversation about, without labeling, without shaming, with that conversation about what is it about this that you enjoy?
You know what? That is pretty interesting. And and that will help because then you can have that that conversation, that clarity, you
Yeah.
know, and put some things in perspective so far as because sometimes somebody won't have needs and they can communicate it, but to the other person it may sound like, because let's be honest, everybody doesn't have the best communication when it comes to their attention to desire. So when they're telling them, just like with the threesome, yeah, I want to have a threesome, and the other person's like, again,
What's
like,
wrong with me?
what's wrong with me? But I have seen in scenarios where the young lady or the young lady will come back. The male say, "I want a threesome." Young lady come back, what's like, they'll ask like, "Well, do you want that with two women or you want that with another guy?" And then the guy is like, "No, I don't want to do it with the other guy." And it's like, well, what type of threesome do you want? Because it
Exactly.
wasn't clear
Right.
on what you wanted to experience
Right.
because communication wasn't there. So when they ask the question from the person being open and curious, they say, "Well, you want that with two guys? Or you want that with two girls?"
Right. And that's that coming from a place of curiosity versus automatically judging and saying, blah, 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 blah. You know, you're asking them, well, what is it about the threesome that you're looking for? And that way you get more information. It also helps you have a better sex life. We're all here because we want to have, we're here. We want to have better sex lives. Okay. Because otherwise I would not have a job. And I have a job because people are having crappy sex lives, you know,
Right.
and we need more communication.
And I agree. Along those lines, you had mentioned earlier regarding different sex drives. So how do you navigate that conversation? Because if a person has a sex drive that's up here and another person's sex drive is down here, like, where do we find that balance? This person wanted 3 times a week. This person is okay with it once a month. And it's like, okay, well, one has a higher desire for intimacy and sex, while the other person is like, well, it can come and go and it doesn't matter.
Going back to 99% of my clients, this is once again completely normal. Listen, we all have different lives. We have different things going on. We have stresses, depressions, work. Also, you know, and a lot of times it's not even necessarily about libido. It's about the context of what's going on in your life. Like I said, the stress, hormones. There's not a someone's right and someone's wrong. This person has, you know, a higher libido versus a lower one. A lot of times it's more just about the type of desire that you have, and kind of what I brought up before about spontaneous versus responsive. Okay. And what that means is basically there's two people usually in a relationship. One person is spontaneous, one person is responsive. In general, the women are usually more responsive and the men are more spontaneous. It could be completely flipped. Okay. Because obviously I've had people in my practice where the woman is like, I want it every day and he could care less. So, but what you need to do is find out your desire style. And if you are somebody that can wake up and, you know, be ready to go and jump on your partner and or see your partner walking around and just be ready, you're considered spontaneous. You're just ready to go.
Yeah.
Someone with responsive desire needs to have things to respond to, especially in long-term relationships. And that's where you want to start doing little makeout sessions. You know what? Speaking of, what had me going yesterday, you know, I told you yesterday, I told my husband, I said, let's just go upstairs. And he just looked at me. You know what started that? Is in the morning, I came downstairs. He is already making his coffee and breakfast. He looks at me and he walks up to me and he takes my glasses off like this. And he just looked at me and I said, oh shit, here it comes. He takes his hand, he puts it by my face and just made out with me and then walked away and finished his breakfast. And I just sat there like, whew, okay. All right. All right. This is how it's going to, I'm literally getting goosebumps right now. That brought about something I responded to. And then within an hour later, he joked around about something and I said, okay, let's go. Because I thought about what he did earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily about someone having a higher desire versus a lower desire. It's more about what type of desire do you have and how can you complement it? You
Okay.
know? Does
That's
that make
that's
sense? Like
that's
one is more of like a gas pedal, you know, where you're going and one's a brake and you have to figure out what car you're in and how to get it.
that's an interesting take on it because I know that there are people that's like, know what? I just can't do it. I need to find somebody that's going to match my, even though I want to
Good
be in
luck.
this relationship, I need to find somebody that's going to match my drive, or they go and operate outside of their relationship to fulfill that additional desire that they need to just have it as much
They're
as they can.
lazy. They're lazy. They don't wanna work on what can actually help. Come on. I mean, all it took was literally a 30-second makeout kiss, and I had him upstairs blowing him. I mean, it was like, pff, come on. It just takes a little bit of effort. Sorry, I hope this is not, like, rated G.
I can't say it's rated G.
Okay.
And I mean, and that kind of took us into our next question, which is, is not having that resentment in relationships when it comes to having a lower or higher sex drive. And like you said, there has to be, you can't be lazy,
Right.
and you have to find some level of connection within that relationship to make that all happen.
Even if
And
it's 10 years, 20 years down the line. I've been together with my husband 13 years, and he still makes me weak in the knees because he's not lazy.
that's that is good. I will hope that when I'm married, I have the same effect on my wife.
Well, you just gotta keep it up. Every day you have to act like you are dating every single day. You do what you did when you got started. What got your partner there? Because I have people saying, "Well, the first couple of years." Well, yeah, those first couple of years are those lust years. And after that, things change. But if you change and you don't keep doing what you did to get your partner in the first place, you will lose that. We have never lost that because we are still dating to this day.
And I now I have heard something, and I want to know whether you agree or not when it comes to talking about relationships. I have read that in one relationship, there's three relationships. In a marriage, there are three relationships. There's a friendship, there is the intimacy, and then there is the business aspect of the relationship. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, no, I think that a lot of that is important. And I know that even though you have a friendship, you want to have your partner as one of your best friends, as your best friend. So you could have a friendship because I know in my previous marriage, I had a friendship. He was just a friend.
Yeah.
I had a business relationship, but we missed the romance part. And the friendship was not strong enough to build that trust and safety to make me feel like I wanted to be romantic. So, yes, I would agree with you that those 3 things are actually a very important component of a successful relationship.
Wow. So everyone, when you're thinking about building a relationship, because we all talk about the foundation of a relationship and what it means to have a successful and good relationship. And that friendship is key because this has to be somebody that you enjoy every day. This
Mhm.
can't be somebody that you enjoy every once in a while. This can't be somebody that you
Right.
enjoy when y'all are only awake
Or on vacation,
or
you
on
wanna enjoy them
vacation.
when you're home too.
This is somebody that you should enjoy every day, somebody that you want to talk to, somebody that you want to confide in,
Right.
somebody that you can see yourself with all the way through. And then that business aspect, what are you building together? Whether it's a family, whether it's an actual business, how do you communicate those intentions of future success, right? Whether it's about getting promoted in a job or going to school, other goals, whatever the case is, right? And then the intimacy part, it has to be somebody that you definitely want to be intimate with, and and it's not pure intimacy. It's not always intimacy, like you're not just the lustful years. This is not somebody that you're just lusting for year after year. I mean, it has to be a true connection,
Right.
a true connection, because you know they used to tell me, a lot of older folks used to tell me, like, looks will fade. As people get older, looks will fade, but that friendship and that connection will keep that fire there, because this is somebody that you enjoy every day. And for
Right.
those that do not enjoy the people, because we know during COVID, we seen the highest divorce rate that we have ever seen,
I
because
was the busiest. I was the busiest during COVID. People were stuck at home going, "Get me the hell away from my partner. What do I do?"
because because from what I learned and read about that, they got so trapped into their
Yep.
routine, going to work, coming home, especially if they were on two different shifts, or they was on the same shift. When they became 24/7, it was like, I don't even know this person no more.
Yeah.
I don't like this person anymore. We don't have anything in common. You grew apart. A 20-year marriage, and you have grown apart because you got
They
so
didn't do the work.
they do the work. You could
Yeah.
go on vacation with this person, but you only tolerating them for what?
2
7 days,
days, 3 days, 7
3
yeah.
3 to 7 days, and
Yeah.
then you're right back into your routine, going to work, dropping the kids off, coming back home, and the cycle keeps going. And COVID exposed a lot of relationships.
Sure
Exposed a
did.
lot of relationships.
Sure did. Yeah, and especially because 'cause you're home all the time and you're like, "Okay, well, now that we're 24/7, we don't wanna be intimate with each other because we see each other all the time." I'm like, "But that's an issue because I'm work with my husband 24/7. He's home right now. We're home t all day, but yet I have no problem in the middle of a day to go grab him to go have sex." That's what it's about. You shouldn't have to say, "Oh god, we're together 24/7. I don't wanna be with them." It should be the opposite, you
Yeah.
know, because you want to be with your partner. And you just have
I
to figure out ways to make it happen.
Now in those instances, if we're talking about during the COVID time and the sparks fade, what are the most effective practical steps couples can take to reignite the desire and rebuild that sexual connection?
Well, desire is gonna die in routine, okay? If you're having resentment, if there's things that you are frustrated with your partner, therapy can be a very good proponent if you have a lot of built up resentment. But when
Mm,
things start fading, you have to look at what you're doing in your routine. Okay. You want to find ways to, once again, I'm going back to the word curiosity. You want to find ways to rebuild curiosity. And that could be flirting with each other, being playful, something new. Okay. Because especially with the people during COVID, if you've been stuck 24/7, you have to new it up. You have to put in variety, whether it be a different type of a date night than just going out to dinner or a movie. Maybe it's going to the beach. Maybe it's going to Barnes and Noble and reading books that you have interest in together, or magazines, or maybe it's what are those escape rooms?
yeah,
Something that is different.
yeah,
Okay. And if you're not flirty and playful, maybe you need to learn how. I
yeah,
actually just I wrote an ebook that's gonna be out very soon, and it's about dirty talk, flirting, and teasing, and how to do it.
yeah.
It should be ready probably in the next week or so, but people don't have those skills, and those are
True.
things that yeah, they don't have those skills, and you need to bring those back, especially if you've had it in those first couple of years. But I think also people lose the skill of touch. They get so used to just seeing each other pass by. My husband and I can't walk past each other without just putting our hands out and holding our hands or going by, giving a quick hug and a kiss and walking away. Focus on touch, how your partner smells. When you give them a hug, sink into that hug. Pay attention to the warmth of the heartbeat, the vibe that you're feeling.
Mhm.
Okay, its desire is not necessarily gone, it's just buried under laundry and stress and bills and crap like that, you know?
You know, the one thing that I like that you said is teasing.
Oh, yeah,
Now,
we don't
now,
do
I,
that
I,
enough.
now I'm being I'm a big component of teasing. Like I am a very big very big component of teasing because
Yeah,
I'll do something to be like, all right, I'm gonna go play video games. We're like, so wait, what? You just gonna leave me here? Pretty
but
much. I wanna leave you here. Like
yeah,
I find interest in leaving you here bothered, thinking about what could have happened.
well, that's what my husband did this morning when he kissed me, and I just sat there and I'm like, "All right, do I take advantage of this now, or do I just bask in the juices that just flowed and let it sit there and simmer?" You know? The thing is with the teasing, and this is some of the things I write in my ebook as well, is that a lot of times if you try to tease a partner that has higher desire, So let's say you have I'm going to just generalize, a woman that has lower desire trying to tease a partner that has higher desire. If they're not in the mood for sex, the woman, and they go and tease the partner who has the desire that's higher, a lot of times their fear is that I would like to kiss and tease, but then my partner has to turn it into something. They can't just stop there. So when people say to me,
Mm,
how do you just kiss and make out like that and just stop? And I said, because you do. That's what teasing is. You just do it, you tease, and you walk the frick away.
yeah.
you
Now,
know?
I don't tease in the bed.
No. You know, but I'm just saying, like, through the day, that teasing is
Yeah.
so important.
Yeah. Even a flirtatious text message
Oh,
or,
yeah.
or,
Squirting emojis,
yeah.
eggplants, peaches.
Or you can send like sexual gifts and stuff like that, because I've seen them. And I've seen some myself. They're like, "So, why you send me this?" You know why? Like,
Yeah.
let's not be brand new. You know what I
Being
want to do.
flirty and playful.
Yeah, and I think that definitely keeps the interest and the spark in a relationship by having that playful flirtatiousness,
Absolutely.
with your partner. You know, um, because I know that, I mean, there's some people that just walk around just like, I don't want to do that. I want to keep it all business and start. Man, listen, I'm sending flirtation texts all day long. Like,
Well, I
once
think
the door is open, we
right.
might as well play. Let's
I
play.
think though, if people struggle, like I'm just going to go back to women, if they struggle with saying, because I have a lot of women telling me this, if I start making out or kissing him, if we don't have sex, he's going to get mad. Have a conversation with your partner and say, I would like to do more of the sensual kind of fun, flirty touch. But my fear or my concern is that if I do that, you're going to expect this, or this.
Yeah.
Can we please, if I tell you I'm just giving you a sensual kiss or being flirty, can I tell you that that's what I'm doing and you're okay with us stopping? Because if so, I'll do it more. And
Okay.
that can help build and benefit the partner in the long run.
Now, let me ask you this. Since we talk about being flirtatious and everything, from my own personal experience, I have dated women that don't know how to flirt or don't know how to be flirtatious.
Right.
And I will say something flirtatious to them and they don't know how to respond. Like they say, well, I don't know how to respond to that. I don't know how to tell you to respond to that. So
Right.
to the women out there or to the men that get flirted with but don't know how to respond, how can they learn and build up that repertoire to be able to respond to flirtatious text or communication?
They have to contact me for my ebook.
I like that.
Yeah. But honestly, yeah, those are some of the things that I talk about. But to give a little idea is for people that are not comfortable with it, because it is something if you're not used to, it's a skill. It really is a
It
skill.
is.
And so if someone says something to you, a lot of people feel like embarrassed or shamed. Start off with just either like just even like a little bit of a laughter. Start off with just something like, oh, that made me, how it made you feel. If you don't know what to say back, to say, oh, that made me feel good. Just starting with small little words
Mhm.
to help the partner be like, okay, it was recognized, it was accepted. If, and even just for like dirty talk, because that's another thing that I talk in the ebook is about dirty talk. A lot of people, especially women, don't feel comfortable, don't know how to dirty talk. So one of the ways, yeah, they do it
I
is they,
experienced that.
yes. So I get them to practice because the ebooks have a lot of different activities, things to do. They go into a bathroom and say things out loud. Say that feels good. Right there, you're hitting the spot. And then you can get a little bit more raunchier if you need it. But practice makes perfect, and it is a skill to practice. So if someone is being flirted with and they don't know how, then they need to just practice with responding and having it come out of their mouth.
Yep.
Sometimes even just practice with like a look or like like a hair flip or whatever it is if you're not comfortable with words. But practicing will make perfect.
I agree with that. I agree. Now, when we're talking about relationships that are in their longevity stage or whatever stage you're in, they use some people, I was having a conversation with one of my friends about this the other day. Using sexual enhancements or stimulants, in relationships, or just not in relationships or anything, they just for better sexual performance. Okay. Whether they're getting it from the gas station, whether they're getting it from the doctor, or they're buying it from somebody that's in their 60s, 70s, 80s, Viagra, and whatever, blue pills and stuff like that don't have erectile dysfunction or anything. What what do you think, or what do you believe this effect will be on them in a relationship? And does this create more expectation, or does nothing at all? Because if you have, for example, if you have somebody taking a honey pack, okay, and they take the honey pack and they got this endurance and they got this stiffness and they're going and going and going, is the woman going to expect more of this, knowing that he got to consistently buy this stimulant or a sexual enhancement to keep up with that expectation?
Obviously a lot of it depends on the age and the ability and physically what's going on. Because if there is something physical and they need that, then it should be okay. What I like to say sometimes, if it takes a pill, a potion, or a sexy playlist all the time, we may have drifted off to what is actually happening here. And I think that enhanced sex is not necessarily emotionally connected sex. And we want to look at, listen, there's nothing wrong with using it intentionally once in a while, but turned into a habit. If, I had someone that came to me that I'm working with right now who is 28 years old. The doctor gave them Viagra at 28 years old because they were having performance anxiety. So when you're doing stimulants and medication, when you don't need it, there's not a 28-year-old. Most of them are going to need Viagra at 28 years old. They need to be more emotionally connected. They need to be able to have those conversations with their partner, to be able to not feel like, the whole idea is performance. We have gotten into such a performance-based society rather than an emotional pleasure-based society.
Yeah.
So once in a while, listen, I love the honey packs for people, especially in menopause for women. Men, as a matter of fact, I'm literally have them right here, on my desk. The honey packs can be really beneficial to help get you jump started. You don't want to have to use it every single time. And
Right.
your sex does not have to be this magical, mind-blowing experience all the time. If you can stay emotionally connected to your partner, you don't need those things all the time, because it is okay if you don't have an orgasm. It is okay if you're not erect. It is okay if you're not 100% wet. Use lubrication. You could still feel pleasure if you don't, have an erection. Don't have intercourse. Do other things.
Yeah.
Don't count on the stimulants as something that could have to have that you have to have every single time.
Is there a big connection with women and orgasms? I know that some men doesn't care whether a woman get an orgasm, and then there's some men that's like they pride themselves on giving women orgasms.
You know what? Those men are just trying to stroke their ego, because most women, yes, listen, we all would love to have orgasms. 75% to 80% of women do not have an orgasm through intercourse.
Hold on, wait. That number is very high.
Yeah. And so when a man has been with 20 women and says, "Oh, they've all had orgasms," bullshit, they've been faking it. Okay. Yeah.
Hold on, guys. Do you hear that? That there 75 to 80% of women are faking orgasms.
No, they're not able to
I don't
have
know.
them. But if you have a man that says every single person they've been with is having orgasms through sex, they've been faked. They've been faked. That's all I have to say. Um, but anyway, you know, the thing that's important for women is that if a woman says, because I remember when I was dating, I specifically would say to the guys I was dating, do not try to give me an orgasm, please. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, I can do it. I can do it. And I said, the fact that you're focusing just on giving me an orgasm is closing me off right away, because you know how much pressure that puts on women, because it's much more difficult for most women to orgasm. Yes, there's women that have multiple orgasms. Yes, women can orgasm, some of them easily, but 75 to 80% can't. Okay, not can't orgasm, but can't do it through sex. We might need manual stimulation. We might need a little bit more mental stimulation. We might need physical. We might need toys. We might need oral. Okay, so for the men that are like, oh yeah, my focus is making sure my girl can come, how about just focus on making sure she enjoys herself? And if she wants to come, she needs to be able to share with her partner what is needed for her to come. Let her masturbate and learn her body. Let her learn different techniques while she's with her partner. Do not put that pressure on a woman to say, because like I said, when I was dating and as soon as the guy said that, I said, you know what? Just because you said that, I'm 100% not going to come, because that's not my goal. That is goal-oriented sex. That is not good sex.
Okay, I can agree. Enjoy the moment, but
Yes.
not focus on a goal.
Right. But that doesn't mean, if let's say the guy orgasms and ejaculates and then says to the woman, is there anything I can do for you to help? Don't just stop and think, oh, well, she's not going to, I don't need to do anything. Still ask, still check to see if there's anything that you can do, but don't make that your goal.
I agree. Now, you brought up a very interesting statement.
Yes.
And I'm loving this conversation, by the way. I guess I've been waiting to have a conversation like this for a while.
It's my daily conversation, but yeah. I'm on TikTok 3 times a week, and I do my lives on TikTok, and all I do is talk about this stuff. So,
and I'm telling you, I have come across so many experiences with women and with the conversation that we're having. So I have met women that have not masturbated to learn themselves. And I don't know if they feel like it's a stigma or whatnot, but out of the conversation that I had with them, and I'm like, and I tell them, I say, well, why don't you go masturbate so you can learn yourself, so you can understand what you
absolutely.
like, understand what works for you and what don't. And I tell them, I say, look, I'm a man, and I'll tell you, I'm okay with instructions. You can instruct me to what you like. If you want it this way, if you want it slower, you want it faster, tell me what you like so we can both enjoy the experience. But if you don't masturbate and learn yourself, then it's like you can't tell a guy whether or not it feels good, whether or not it hurts, or whatever the case is. Okay.
Well, they're afraid of bruising an ego. Men have egos, I have to tell you, when
Oh
it
yeah,
comes to sex.
we do. When it comes to sex, we definitely have
Right. So
egos. I'm
women
not gonna lie.
are hesitant to bruise the man's ego, but most men, like you just said, most men want instruction
Yes.
because we want to please our partners.
Yes. So what will be your advice to women that is, I don't want to say afraid of masturbation, but
Well, there's shame.
I was about to say feel ashamed to masturbate because whatever thinking that they have, how can they get beyond that so they can learn themselves in order to be able to communicate their desires to a partner or a future partner?
Right. And that goes back to younger years, with society saying women are not supposed to enjoy sex. Women are not supposed to touch themselves. It's gross. It's not nice. So we have to, first of all, switch the flip the switch and be like, okay, well, what is good for me now? What is good for my relationship? Even religiously, a lot of people struggle with
Yeah.
masturbation, women and men, just due to religious backgrounds. But we have to think is, if we are going to be in a relationship in the future, or even with ourselves, the main thing is loving ourselves. We were born to allow ourselves pleasure. We were born as sexual beings. So if we kind of have that mindset as like, okay, well, I'm allowed to be sexual because that's how I was born. Society and religion and everybody else, parents, education, all that takes that away, that ability. So if we can just look at it as like, well, I'm not masturbating because I want to come. If you can change that mindset, say, I'm masturbating to learn myself to have a better connection with my partner. So for those people
There
that
you
are a
go.
little nervous, listen, I do it because it feels good. Okay. But for the people that can't get there and just wake up in the morning and be like, I'm just going to go grab a toy right now and get going. For the people that really need to change that mindset, look at it as like, okay, I want my husband or my wife or whatever it is to have a good, positive connection relationship sexually. What can I do to help? Oh, I can learn my body. Focus on the education part. And even if you're not focusing on orgasm, you're focusing on just touching. You're saying to yourself, I have just like this little, of course it's purple because I'm purple, but sit there and just, just touch the edges and see what feels good. Touch the edges here, touch inside, touch the clitoral area. Just touch and explore. Don't focus on, oh, I got to sit there and make sure I have an orgasm.
Yeah.
That can help.
Yeah. I agree. But Dr. Stacy, thank you for coming on to the show. This has been a phenomenal conversation. I think I've been waiting for this conversation for the past 2 years,
Anytime.
So we appreciate you coming on the show. Farewell fans, this has been another great conversation. Dr. Stacy, do you have any last words that you want to share with the fan base?
I would just like to say, first of all, be a trisexual. Try something sexual, and if you don't like it, you don't have to do it again. No, but I think just open mind, lead with curiosity and not judgment, and you will see changes in your relationship.
All right. Well, Farewell fans, there you have it. Man, we dropped another one. A whole bunch of gems got dropped. I hope that you like this one as much as you like the previous ones and as much as you're going to like the next one. We'll catch you on the next go around. Peace.
Peace.